Hello, welcome to the House of Wellness. I'm Luke Darcy, and it is always a great day when you catch up with this team. Dr. Nick Carr, welcome to you. Jacqui Felgate, Joe Stanley, good to be with you guys.
Hi, Darcy.
We're here at Melbourne's magnificent Ripponlea estate. It's a very beautiful historic mansion and the gardens are just gorgeous. It dates back to 1860 and in actual fact was one of the first homes to have indoor toilets.
You always bring the best information, don't you?
You want to know that there are toilets.
And the technology is astounding.
We talk a lot about the benefits of green spaces on this show, and in these days when apps and screens and so on are ubiquitous, the good feeling you get from being out here is almost instantaneous.
100% with you on that, Nick. I feel like as technology is advancing so quickly, spending time in spaces like this is going to be more beneficial than it ever has been before.
Well, Darcy, you may remember them when we did a story on forest bathing. We talked about what are called phytoncides, those chemicals that trees produce that are good for our immune system. And I absolutely love that science is keeping up with why these kind of spaces are so good for us. Because elsewhere, science in areas like artificial intelligence, robotics, seem to be galloping ahead so fast, maybe a bit too fast.
And Nick, one of the other big things going on at the moment is space travel. Virgin Galactic have got their commercial space flights up and running. Are you a chance for that, Jack, or not?
I am not a chance, but I will tell you about it because I don't have $500,000. So it goes 80 kilometres up in the air. It takes 75 minutes, and yes, it's $500,000 to go.
Well, do you know the great thing about space travel in this way is that it's making space travel accessible, which means actually we're getting more women in space, which, you know, it's time we even the ledger there because of all the 600 people that have made it to space, only 72 have been women.
Well, I think anything that encourages women to get into the sciences is a good thing.
Absolutely, couldn't agree more. And, you know, I was lucky enough to meet the NASA innovator who's designing great ways to get women into space.
What initially sparked your interest in space?
You know, that's really interesting because I was not the kid watching Star Trek or Star Wars, right? Like, I was playing basketball, I was drawing, or I was, you know, trying to get my mom to buy me a new pair of sneakers. My art teacher, I was one of her top students, and I had no clue what I wanted to study in uni. And she's like, oh, are you good at math and science? Why don't you try engineering? And that literally sparked the whole thing for me. So as I started to take the coursework at uni, I enjoyed the challenge and I kept going. It was one internship that I did at NASA, and that sealed it all for me.
We have a beautiful movement here in Australia to try and encourage girls into STEM careers. Why are you passionate about seeing girls in these sorts of industries?
When you think about where the world is going as far as tech is concerned, there needs to be, in my opinion, diversity when it comes to the people behind the technology that's being developed. And I believe when you have more diversity, especially with women, there's an approach to problem solving. There's an angle that I think we would be doing ourselves disfavor if we didn't include more women.
I really love the combination of you being great at art, but also engineering, because both are very creative, right?
Absolutely. So one of the things that I do outside of NASA is I developed a program called Stimulating Art. And so I literally use art, fashion, and design to teach concepts that are very deep in STEM. You can teach a student about Newton's laws of motion by having them design a pair of sneakers. And you start off just using art and craft material, and you can go as far as actually making a shoe.
So tell us about this extraordinary spacesuit for women that you have designed. Can you explain to us what it is and how it's different?
So this is completely outside of my role as a NASA engineer. This is part of an initiative I started through my company, Girl in Space Club. So I go into schools, I dress up in a flight suit, and I'm talking to students all the time. And I thought, well, I want my own suit that I can customize and just, you know, wear to these events. And then I hired a product developer to bring my sketches to life, and it was very expensive. And so I thought, well, let's see if anybody else would want something like this. And so when you think about the majority of astronauts, they're male. The thing is with flight suits too, it's not just NASA, it's the military, right? Which majority of people in the military who wear flight suits are men. So you start talking with women who are pilots, who are astronauts, and the biggest issue was going to the bathroom. So literally, we have a patent pending feature that allows the wearer to go to the bathroom without taking the entire suit off. Yeah, literally, we just tried to make it fashionable and functional. We have a small batch that we produced, and we're going to basically offer them for sale. And then our plan is to actually do made to order. And so they can come in different sizes. They could also come in different color options. We're pretty close. I mean, in the next couple of weeks, like we're that close to offering these suits for sale.
And so what has been the reaction from people, women, who might wear something like this for their job?
Yeah, they like this. Thank you. Thank you.
Sabrina is amazing, a true trailblazer, and she hopes to be selected for a NASA spaceflight in 2024, and I really hope she gets there.
Well, Joe, missions to Mars are next. 4 volunteers, 2 males and 2 females, recently entered a Mars simulator in Texas in the US. They're going to spend 378 days in conditions that we think are what it would be like living in Mars.
That is an absolute hard no from me.
Thank you.
I don't even like flying on a plane, so Mars is just a bridge too far, I'd say.
The tech wonders continue after the break as we meet the robots that are going to define the future.
Plus the warning signs of the disease that is a silent killer for women. That's next.
Joe, we know that technology is now connecting us in ways that we never even possibly imagined in the past, but I can't help but think at the same time it's driving us further apart.
Oh, well, you and I have teenagers in our lives, Darcy, and I tell you what, they're constantly on technology, texting each other, but face-to-face they can barely talk.
I agree, and I think you're seeing it more in everyday life as well, like catching a plane. If you do the automated check-in, you don't actually talk to anyone until you get on the aircraft, and that need for human contact, it's diminishing.
Yeah, Jack, we've all got used to ordering food from a QR code at a table, but restaurants around the globe are taking it a step further, with robotic waiters now being deployed in restaurants everywhere around the country.
Forget robot waiters, the United Nations are using robots to strive for world peace and end global hunger.
You're right, Joe, because the UN have just held their AI Summit for Good in Geneva, and they're showcasing robots and AI in everything from healthcare to sustainable development and how to use them responsibly.
Well, of the 51 robots on show, 9 of them were humanoid robots. There's Grace. She can show empathy. Really? Maybe more so some humans than we know. And she knows over 100 languages.
I still think, especially those really realistic ones, they're so creepy. But AI certainly does have a purpose, particularly in the health space.
Yeah, because we're now using robots for surgery, including even heart surgery, which is pretty incredible.
Well, in Australia, we're lucky to have access to world-class heart care, which is especially vital for women because we often don't know the symptoms.
How big a problem is heart disease in women?
Put simply, it's the biggest killer of women globally. I think the bigger issue is that women don't realise this. So, not all, but a lot of heart disease is preventable. But women are focused on their reproductive health, on having babies. We're good at screening for breast cancer, pap smears, skin checks, all of that. But heart disease isn't on our radar.
You set up a heart clinic at the Alfred Hospital, which is dedicated to women. Why did you see the need for that?
Because we were starting to see in the literature that women were presenting differently, women were having worse outcomes, women weren't getting the same treatment that men were getting, women were responding differently to treatment. So we realised at a scientific level that things were very different and we needed to look into this.
Can you explain then the difference between men's and women's heart disease and how they present differently?
So the most common cause of a heart attack is a blockage in the artery that supplies the heart muscle, and that's the same for men and women. The classic symptom is chest pain, and that's what we see in the movies. But the thing is that women can often have associated symptoms, so they might get a bit of chest discomfort, but they might have nausea or dizziness or breathlessness that sort of distract them from the fact that they've got the pain. Or they may have no chest pain. They might get discomfort in the shoulder or just heavy arms or in the jaw, so they're not aware that they're having a heart attack or they're having heart symptoms. And that's a problem because they will delay seeking help. And even when they do seek help, they may not be thought to be having a heart attack, so therefore they're not investigated in a timely fashion. And in heart disease, time is really critical. So you can see how things happen in a way that perhaps is not the best for the patient, and outcomes can be worse.
Is there an element too around women being educated to understand what their body is telling them and what the symptoms might mean?
Look, it's tricky. We've seen some nasty data about the fact that women are more likely to be diagnosed with anxiety when they present with a heart attack. You know, there's a lot of concern, and women are often afraid to present because they don't want to be annoying anybody, they don't want to be causing trouble, and perhaps they don't present when they should, and they're fearful of being told, you know, you're just a bit anxious, it's okay, go home.
Because we so often hear that we should be advocates for our own health, but how often are we presenting and then perhaps being sort of sent on our way? That gets a bit tiring.
Absolutely. And I think we're learning now too that we can find signs of increased risk earlier on in a woman's life. So, for instance, pregnancy is a really big stress test for the heart. So if you have complications during your pregnancy, something like preeclampsia or hypertension, so that's high blood pressure, or gestational diabetes, small baby or early delivery, you're more likely to have heart disease. So we know that if we intervene with these women earlier, even if it's just lifestyle and education and saying, okay, you're at higher risk, 1, this is what you can do to minimise your risk, and 2, these are the symptoms that you've got to look out for, you can make a really big difference.
What other risks should we look out for as women?
So in addition to the pregnancy issues, there's things like menopause. So that endogenous oestrogen, which is the oestrogen our bodies make, is really protective. And the moment that starts to fall away, risk of heart disease starts to go up. We see changes in cholesterol, changes in the way the vessels function. So menopause is actually a time when a woman should really go and see about having their heart health checked if they haven't before. Now, if you have an early menopause, so 45, 40, or goodness, even 35, your risk is much higher. So it's important for women to also realise that menopause is a really big issue. The other thing to say is that the traditional risk factors that we all know about, such as smoking, diabetes, high blood pressure, have a slightly different strength or weighting in women. So smoking is a much bigger risk factor for women than it is for men. So it's the same as diabetes. Inflammatory disease is another thing. So something like lupus or rheumatoid arthritis really increases one's risk of heart disease. So they're just little things that if we get the knowledge out there, people can sort of go, oh, okay, I've got a few risk factors. I need to go and see what I can do to minimise my risk. Women are at risk, and I really want them to be empowered to look after themselves. Seek help. A lot of this is preventable. Put yourself first.
Beautiful to be here at the magnificent Ripon Lee, and the gardens are superb. And I feel, Joe, it always calms me down being in a surround like this, because on the other side of the fence, life gets pretty crazy at times.
Well, we are talking a lot about innovation on the show today, which is in stark contrast to these very beautiful natural surrounds. But here's an innovation that combines nature, speed and technology. These all-terrain wheelchairs that have been developed in the US to make nature and outdoor recreation more accessible for all.
Well, you can actually get all-terrain chairs at national parks here in Australia, but they're nothing like those chairs, which are pretty special.
Anything that makes off-track activities available to more people, I reckon, has to be a good thing. But the same rules apply as to other ATVs, and wear a helmet.
Yes. Now, actually, Darcy, I don't know if you remember, but you and I were able to sort of release our inner rev heads when you and I have been able to do the Celebrity Grand Prix a few years ago. Not together. We didn't
he
compete.
remembers.
No.
But you didn't sort of, your result wasn't so great.
I want to take great exception to you saying that, Joe, as a matter of fact, because as I remember it, I was going beautifully and about to overtake and head towards the podium before I got T-boned and then ended up on my roof, Jack. And I remember sort of looking up and the petrol was dripping down and going, this is probably not ideal at this particular... But it was a great fun event to do that one.
Well, perhaps it does prove once and for all that women are better drivers than men.
I don't know. I didn't end up on the roof, but I did come second last. So, it's not for me.
But I think F1 certainly has a long way to go when it comes to female drivers and inclusion in the sport.
Well, that could be about to change, Jack, because Motorsport Australia has started what's called a Girls on Track programme, designed not just to get girls behind the wheel, but also more involved in motorsport itself.
Another initiative to get more women and girls into STEM careers, which is fantastic. So let's go trackside to meet the female motorsport stars of the future.
This is where all the big names in motorsport start, in a go-kart. And it's where this eager bunch of young females are whetting their appetites for speed and science.
Well, good morning, girls. We are so excited to have you all here to introduce you to the motorsport world this morning.
Who better to set the tone for the latest Girls on Track program than the CFO of Motorsport Australia, Charlotte Hayes.
So I was born into a motorsport family and I went to my first British Grand Prix when I was just 6 weeks old. Oh, it's absolutely a huge passion for me seeing girls get involved in motorsport. It's something that I've certainly been passionate about my entire life. So our mission is to inspire you as the next generation of young girls considering a career in STEM and to give you the confidence in what you can achieve. You know, at the moment, the sport is very male-dominated, and that's something certainly that we're desperately trying to change and show girls that just because they're entering something that is male-dominated, that shouldn't preclude them in any way from having a successful career. Really making sure that we're widening the pool of girls that are coming through that have an interest. Some will end up as drivers, some will end up as accountants, some will end up in media. And that's what this program is here to show, that you don't necessarily have to be a driver or an engineer to be involved in motorsport.
3, 2, 1, box, box, box!
Girls on Track is designed to expose girls to an industry and a host of opportunities that were once out of reach.
Well done, well done. Does anyone know what engineering is? Does anyone have an idea what an engineer does?
And to meet some inspirational young women, like Emmy Drew, who chose a career pathway that still mainly attracts the boys.
And what engineers do is we not only build things, but we also design them. It started when I was 12 years old. My dad took me to my first Grand Prix. I decided I want to be a ballerina as well as an F1 driver. Yeah, neither of those really worked out, but that's okay. And then when it came to choosing a degree at university, I decided engineering was the way to go, and with the motorsport really pushing that passion, I guess.
Yeah, why do you reckon we have this rubber band that attaches those wheels?
The next one.
Yeah, so that one turns as well?
Yeah, exactly. So I didn't have experiences like this when I was their age. That some, programs like this didn't exist, sadly. So it was definitely a fight for me to kind of get to where I am, and definitely being the only girl in certain classes, a lot of STEM classes, was the only girl in, my systems engineering class and physics class even. So to be able to engage the girls and trigger that passion early on so that they have buddies with them, when they get to that stage where they're choosing VCE and university subjects and degrees, they won't be the only ones, and that'll give them a lot of confidence, I think, to pursue their passions.
Yeah, so can you see the little lights down here, the little eyes? So it's sort of like a sensor, a light sensor, right? So it's going to sense how far it can go. And once it hits something solid, it's going to stop.
A lot of the mechanics, that actually sounds really interesting to me, because it's usually known as like a guy kind of thing. It's not really a known thing for girls to do, but yeah, it's really good to see that all those girls were there and they were having fun and they were really getting into it.
So to go in this corner, stay out wide.
Overall, I think it was a really fun and exciting experience. We got to learn a lot of new things in the STEM field, and I think really good to see all these women really passionate for what they're about. It's kind of sparked a passion within me as well, being able to see, wow, that's actually a career I could choose to go to.
Okay, girls, how are we going with our owl vomit? Is it fully sick?
Mark Robinson is a big fan of STEM and has been using the Girls on Track program to promote science in the classroom.
Being one of our science teachers, and I also teach research science, I really wanted to see more female participation in those subjects, particularly through into our VC levels, which we've seen as a school, which has been fantastic and is a direct result of the program and our involvement in it.
So that's your best friend. If you ever feel like you're out of control or you're going too fast, just hit that and then it's all good to go.
So if you guys, when you get a bit older, you might start building robots and programming them to sort of walk around, walk in a square and things like that, or in a circle.
It's so important to get girls involved in STEM because there is a lack of women and girls in that area. And I feel like we just add so much more to the environment. We really balance it out. We bring new skills to the industry. And I think regardless of whether, you know, we might be the only female in the room, we really just need to push for it and come together in events like this and encourage each other in order to create that sort of change, yeah.
Arms up in the air, say girls on track!
How talented and focused are those young women, Jack?
Amazing.
They are absolutely amazing. And the latest data in the participation of women and girls in STEM shows that things are on the improve.
That's right. There's been a 24% increase in the number of women enrolling in STEM courses at university.
And women and girls are entering STEM careers more. That is on the rise, although at a much slower rate. And the gender pay gap in the field is shrinking as well.
There is still a way to go, though. Just 27% of the STEM workforce are female and fewer than a quarter are in senior management positions.
There is still a lot of work to be done, definitely, Jack. And someone who never shies away from hard work is Luke Hines, who is determined to try every alternative therapy he can. And this week, he's giving the ancient practice of Reiki a go.
When you're feeling a bit blah, there are so many ways to get the energy going. And if the motivation is a little bit low, then a great massage is the perfect way to go. It's uplifting, it's energising and relaxing all at the same time. In the world of Reiki, that energy is said to come from the energy fields around the body, and that energy is transferred through the practitioner's hands. That's why it's also called a palm healing. I'm totally up for it. Let's check it out.
Okay, so what we're going to do to start off the session, just going to start with some nice, slow, deep breaths. So when you're ready, take a nice, slow inhalation in. That's it, breathe. I guess for me, how I came to Reiki is it's such a subtle and beautiful, gentle kind of modality, but it makes you feel extremely safe in your body, and kind of connecting someone back into the main energy points and into their own self-autonomy is really important as a practitioner. So it kind of, clients come back feeling in their own power, basically, and energetically able to self-regulate and live their life based on more authentically who they are. In every culture, you'll always find there's always been a form of energy healing or hands-on healing. Reiki itself was brought forward by a Japanese doctor called Dr. Mikao Usui in the early 1900s. So he was someone who was a scholar and a teacher, and he actually studied lots of ancient healing art forms prior to that time, particularly in the Indian Ayurvedic kind of medicine system, as well as Tibetan Buddhism. And he kind of brought forth the system, which is, a complete energy healing medicine system. So these crystals I'm just using on your main energy points and your main chakra points. It's not necessary to use in a Reiki treatment. I just like to kind of ground and anchor the points more so. So as a Reiki practitioner, you go through a process of an attunement process. And so with that process, it allows a practitioner just to connect to the universal life force. So that's nothing foreign. As we know, and physics tells us, everything is made of energy. So the Reiki practitioner, they really connect and direct that universal life force to the client's body and their own internal life force.
Let's talk about that energy for a second.
Yeah.
When I'm in a Reiki session, are you working off my energy, your energy or the energy around us?
The energy around us are more of that universal collective energy. So essentially with Reiki, I'm just facilitating and kickstarting the body's own innate, like self-healing and self-regulating mechanisms. So it's really how the body responds to rebalancing to its own set point. So that can look very different for different people. Sometimes I have clients that have really strong vibration feeling, sometimes they have nervous system release, sometimes visuals or colours come through. But definitely heat is one of the most common experience. Clients often have that feedback of like, wow, your hand's really heated up in that area where I've had an injury there, for instance. But say if I'm working on a more of an emotional level, sometimes old emotions or old previous memories or even previous trauma can rise as I'm kind of rebalancing and getting everything flowing again in the system. How are you feeling there, Luke?
Very relaxed.
Good. And so you can feel quite a lot of heat coming through at the moment, particularly on the right side. So there's a balancing out around your temporal bone here. So it's kind of coming up and around the side here. So if it gets too hot, let me know, but that's just part of it.
What do you feel in your hands during the treatment?
I generally feel different sensations as I'm working on different points. So it can be different electrical charge, heat. I can feel different sensation, fluid movements, muscle kind of relaxing. So I'm kind of picking up and feeling what the clients are receiving in responding to the Reiki. Is that comfortable there for you? Particularly on the right side as well, there's a bit more of a kind of charge or frequency going downwards. So just kind of... I think a lot of people seek Reiki for just managing a lot of their mental health, whether it's stress, depression, lack of sleep. Also to gain a bit more clarity and feel a little bit more centered in themselves when they're feeling a bit off. I treat a lot of clients who also have pre-op and post-op, so it's really beneficial alongside any other allopathic or any other allied or alternative therapy. It can be, used alongside those who are on different medications or going through different treatments. So there's no real contraindications in that sense. So in that way, a lot of people who have tried lots of different kind of avenues for their health and particularly chronic health conditions, I feel like, they reach out to Reiki to just get that overall global support, which then really has a nice balancing effect for where they're at in their condition.
I've had plenty of massages in my time, but none have put me to sleep that quickly or effectively. I was out like a light. I started to just let go of what was racing through my mind and completely tune into the process. And by tuning in, I actually tuned out. If Reiki is about the parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system and completely letting go, well, it allowed me to do just that. Now, I'm not quite sure how the energy side of it works, but what I do know is this. I feel like I've had 8 hours sleep. I feel really energised for the day, and I feel really focused about what's ahead. If you're a little bit curious, I reckon definitely give it a go.
From winding down with Hinesy to curling up with stylist Jacqui, we take a look at the best hair tools on the market after this.
Being sick with a cough is bad enough, but we've all experienced those sideways looks when cold symptoms take hold in the most unexpected places. Public transport, in a supermarket, and that's not to mention the fear that we'll pass on those germs to family and friends. So how can we reduce the severity of a cough and get on the road to recovery? Naomi, you would have seen your fair share of coughs. What is the first thing that we should consider?
Yeah, you're right. People may want to treat a cough quickly to stop it from worsening, but before you start treatment, it's important to understand exactly what type of cough you have. 2 common coughs are a dry, unproductive cough that doesn't produce mucus, or the opposite, a chesty, wet cough that produces phlegm. That cough, it's often worse in the morning. The common cold or mild respiratory infections may cause a chesty cough. So what happens is a buildup of mucus in our airways activates what's known as the coughing reflex, as our body tries to clear the respiratory tract so we can breathe normally.
When the body does want to cough, there's seemingly nothing that we can do about it. So are there any treatments available?
Thankfully, no matter where we're caught out with our coughing symptoms, there are solutions. Chesty cough syrups may provide some relief. They work by loosening mucus and clearing chest congestion to help reduce coughing. For situations where consuming a liquid isn't possible, tablets may also be a convenient option. The most important thing is rest. Easier said than done. I know it's difficult with our busy lives, but eating well, keeping hydrated and getting lots of sleep is going to put your body in the best position to recover. Also, make sure that you do consult a medical professional, particularly if your symptoms are lasting more than 5 days.
1 day is bad enough for me.
I know.
Bisolvent Chesty Fort is a non-drowsy double-strength formula that provides 8-hour relief for chesty coughs, so you can get back to life sooner.
Sarah Davidson there. Now, today we are celebrating women in STEM. Earlier, we met the NASA innovator who's putting the style into spacesuits.
Great story, that one. While over in Pakistan, a woman who was the country's first female architect is using her skills to help people left homeless by natural disaster, Joe.
Yep, Yasmin Lari, who is responsible for creating some of Pakistan's most celebrated buildings, is turning her talents at 81, mind you, to building sustainable, portable disaster relief shelters. They're made from bamboo and they can be disassembled and rebuilt as needed. It's brilliant.
Yeah, the structures are simple, they're affordable, and they leave a zero carbon footprint, Joe. Can you believe that? And at 81 years of age, what an incredible contribution she has made now to so many people in her country.
Well, from erecting amazing buildings to engineering the perfect curl. It's a little tenuous, but we're getting there. Here is Jade Kay with her must-have hair tools.
Hair tools are great because what they do is they give you the chance to change your look. So something you naturally don't have. If you have dead straight hair, you can change it to curly hair. If you have curly hair and you want straight hair, you need a hair tool. So I actually have dead straight poker straight hair. So not many people would know that because I always have a wave in it, I have texture, I like the softness that it adds to my face shape. So I actually use quite a few tools. However, that hair lasts me for like 5-6 days. So the key is to remember about hair health, to remember about heat on heat on heat, and look after your scalp. I'm using a curling wand. This barrel, it's not too thick, not too thin, but it's the perfect amount for getting a nice tousled wave. I'm going to keep the clasp up because once you close that, you can get a bend in the hair, which I would try and avoid at all costs. So the fringe section, I'm going to curl really quickly and grab around 5 to 6 centimetres in thickness, keeping the end of the hair out. And it creates that S wave that you want and stretching it down like so. So I'm curling away from the face and the curling tongue is pointed downwards. It doesn't need to be perfect. If someone at home, they're in their 50s and they're saying, I really love this textured curly hair, but I'm scared that it's not perfect, that's the great thing about a wave. You can have more curls around this area, less around this, and once you brush it or comb it out, it just sits really tousled and really lived in. The finishing locking in steps really is just spraying it with a really good hairspray, texturizing spray, shaking it out, and then my little trick is to clamp it with a straightener and it's done. Straightening your hair for most people is quite an easy process. So there's a lot out there now compared to when I was younger and, you know, I'd get the iron board out and do it on the ironing board. Start with the hair semi-dry with most of the dampness out, and with a hair dryer, blow dry from the root. I'm going to start just really with a flat brush. So we've managed to get out the curl as such, but it doesn't have that shiny, sleek, straight finish look that we're after. So that's when we would use a straightener. I'm going for a larger size straightener. Just be mindful when you are straightening that you follow the direction the hair grows. So when we're straightening, we're holding it this way, following it down. If we were to bring the hair straightener out, you're going to change the overall shape. The frizzy hair girls, the girls with thick hair, and girls with the really tight curls, that is a lengthy process, and sometimes it involves going to a hairdresser, getting treatments put in your hair long term to make it easier for you. Technology's come a long way. So go for a product that you don't have and have fun with it. Just do different looks. My signature hairstyle definitely isn't this. It'll be really rare to see me with sleek hair. Don't get stuck doing the same thing. And I'm here today to show you that I haven't.
There's nothing quite as delicate as a baby's skin. Now, my daughter is older now, but I remember how soft and precious her skin was and the importance of nourishing it. Founded in an eco-village in New Zealand over 30 years ago, the brand Eco Store is dedicated to creating safe and gentle products made with respect for the environment and the families using them. The Eco Store baby range uses plant and mineral-based ingredients to cleanse and nurture baby's skin, including lavender oil, organic chamomile and harakeke, New Zealand's aloe vera. Each product is dermatologically certified for sensitive skin and free from chemicals that may irritate young skin. A baby's skin isn't only sensitive during bath time. What you wash their clothes with could also affect their delicate skin. The Eco Store ultra-sensitive laundry range is effective on dirt and stains, but free from chemicals and is fragrance-free. With bottles made from renewable and recyclable sugarcane plastic, Eco Store is one of the few helping to safeguard babies' skin as well as the world that they grow up in.
Thanks, Zoe, with some lovely tips on caring for Bub's skin. Now, Das, I have to say, today's show has been all about innovation, and a lot of people, I think, they look to the future and the technological advances a little bit fearfully, like people are a bit wary of it, but I think a lot of the innovations we've looked at are just fantastic.
Yeah, true, Joe, especially when it's used to clean up mistakes of the past. And it's tragic to think that landmines are still a massive issue around the world. And staggeringly, Joe, 100,000 landmines are still deployed every year in countries around the world.
Which is where the CSIRO comes in. They are co-developing new technology for handheld devices, which means that they'll be able to find and clear mines much more quickly and reliably.
And this brilliant technology, Joe, originated in the mining industry to detect ore, and people are talking about it as being a complete game changer for countries that are recovering from conflict. So a great use of technology.
Well, we love Australian innovation and we love caring for our planet. And here's Zoe and Hines with 2 plant-based meals that tick both those boxes.
Today, it's all about STEM, Zoe. Science, technology, engineering and maths. And I know it might not be the most obvious connection, but cooking is a form of all of these.
Absolutely, Lukey. Science in the construction of flavours, technology in equipment, engineering in the bringing of ingredients together, and maths. Have you ever tried converting grams into cups? It's not easy.
Right, I've spent so long in the kitchen doing that. But the ultimate example of STEM in the cooking world is actually with plant-based recipes.
Now, plant-based eating is a pretty broad term. It covers a lot of different eating habits, but the key thing is most of the things on your plate should be plant-sourced.
Now, it may mean that some recipes contain no meat products at all, just like my spicy stuffed mushrooms.
Or it may mean adding a little bit of animal products like the egg in my plant-based meatballs, where tofu is the meat substitute.
The popularity of plant-based diets has been on the increase in recent years, with Aussies ditching animal products for a number of reasons, including environmental, economic and religious reasons.
And did you know the most substituted animal product is actually cow's milk?
As someone who loves to put a sneaky dash of oat milk in their morning coffee, I'm all over that.
Popularity aside, is plant-based eating actually better for you? Well, in a nutshell, yes, provided you're doing it in a healthy manner.
Most people can get the nutrients they need from a plant-based approach, including protein, which is usually associated with meat. But you've got to stick to foods like beans, legumes, quinoa and nuts.
Don't forget that eggs, dairy and meat are allowed on a plant-based eating. They just shouldn't be the centrepiece of your diet.
I think where things get dicey, Zoe, is when we start looking at those plant-based meat alternatives. They're very processed and refined. I'm not talking about what you're using because you know exactly what is in your ingredients. But if you think about those fake sausages and those burger patties, just steer clear.
Yeah, the processed nature of these foods often means the plant-based goodness is gone. And although they can taste like meat, they've often got a lot of artificial flavours in them.
The take-home here, Zoe, and we talk about this a lot, is to just eat real food. It is always going to be healthier than the processed or refined alternative, even if it says it's plant-based.
And Lukey, forget STEM. Those mushrooms are a work of art. I love it.
Well, I was thinking, and hear me out here, rather than eating them, framing them and putting them on the wall in the good room.
You have gone mad, but I love it.
Well, it's been a really enjoyable day here at Ripponlea Estate, and I have to say I'm pretty glass half full about where technology is taking us in the future, but for me, nothing ever replaces spending a quiet day in nature like we have done today.
Oh, it's absolutely beautiful to be surrounded by the trees and the birds and all the little critters and insects that reminds us that we need to protect it, but also how awesome it is when nature gives you a lovely surprise.
I've got a little surprise for you too. A tiny reptile has been sighted for the first time in 50 years after it was thought to be extinct. It's the Victorian grassland earless dragon, and it used to be common, earless, that's right, it used to be common in areas west of Melbourne.
Yeah, and the last confirmed sighting was in the Geelong area in about 1969, and then change of habitat and an increase in predators like feral cats saw the numbers decline.
But it's back, which is so wonderful. However, you're not going to be able to see it with your own eyes because they are keeping its location secret to help protect it.
But you know what they say, Joe? Where there's one, there's two. And now they're using detector dogs, really very, very gentle detector dogs, to sniff out some more of these super cute little reptiles.
Well, that is a really positive note to finish the show on today, and a big thanks to the team at the Ripponlea Estate for hosting us today.
Make sure you check out House of Honest Radio with myself and Gerald Quigley this Sunday.
And Wanderlust True North is almost upon us. Leaders in the mindfulness, music, yoga and food space will descend on Melbourne, Sydney and the Gold Coast this September, and tickets are on sale now.
And Jack, if you're over 65, you live in Melbourne, you've got some concerns about your memory, cognitive issues, and maybe some problems with your sense of smell, you may be eligible to apply for the Mind Your Nose study. Here's how to apply.
Thanks to Dr. Nick Carr, to Jacqui Felgate, to Joe Stanley and our great friends at Chemist Warehouse. We'll see you next time on the House of Wellness.